Hello, hi, welcome to This Is Your Spotlight. I am your host, Eurydice Roman. That is right, I am back for season five. Uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco. In 2025, I'm on season five. So today I have a, hmm, he's an audio dot, which means he's self-taught. If you don't know what that means, look it up. He taught himself filmmaking from books, from movies, and things like that. And he's had a pretty impressive reel. You're going to see it before this lovely interview. I have the one and only. I always call everybody the one and only because 9 out of
Yeah.
10, you probably are the one and only that I've met, but the world has failed to see
There we go.
your uniqueness. Darn it. Adam Gonzalez from Gilded Harbor Films.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, yes. So, in terms of the movies you've done thus far, you've done Inve, you've done Make No Mistake, but mistake is spelled like the word steak,
Yeah, on purpose.
which is a nice little pun.
Yeah.
And then Anna Adore. You've had those type of films out thus far. And of course, Roma the silent film. That was interesting. I was like, there was a Roma the silent film? And then it's like, no, it's not like, I forgot Irutu, Alexander Irutu's version of Roma, which is the black and white
Yeah.
film and things
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
it got mixed up with that one all the time. But I'll take the free press from the
Hey,
the
why
free
not?
exposure.
Because yeah, I'm sure they're gonna go like, wait, there was a Roma the silent film, and it's a short. Really? He had
And in
time.
black and white. Yeah. There was a lot of some weird similarities.
Yes, yes. I tried to watch Roma, God bless it, and it was just like, okay, it's
Yeah.
getting to a point. It's getting somewhere, right? This is a lot of silence for a while. It's just like the movie The Artist when it was in
Yeah.
black and white, and it was like about the first silent film star, I think, or something to that
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
So
That
it
was
was in kind of those realms.
yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, when you first start a project, what's the appeal to it, or what are you trying to convey that you haven't done in previous films?
Oh man. I mean, it's tough because I literally have like a list of all these movies I would love to make at some point in my life if I get to live that long, you know. It's I think it has to do a lot with timing. Um and some things happen like right away, like on the spot. Some things I've had in the back burner for a long time, and then I'm just like, you know what, I'm ready. I have a feeling to kind of move forward with this. A lot of the ideas that I do have though
Mm-hmm.
usually come from me listening to music. That's probably like my biggest inspiration. I listen to a lot of like existing movie soundtracks and just music in general, but
Mm-hmm.
specifically like instrumental music with like no lyrics. It helps me like just kind of get lost and start thinking of something. It could just be like one scene, and then I start saying, okay, well, how did they get there? What happens after? But then what if they did this? And then it starts turning into like a story, and then I start just writing it down, and then I'll just like mind dump until like I've exhausted all the details I can come up with, and then usually at some point I pick it back up, or if it's interesting enough for me to say like, you know what, let me run this by like one of my buddies or like an actor that I know, and just to see like what they think about this idea, and then it kind of like snowballs from there, and then hopefully becomes a film.
Oh gosh. So ideally, you've made almost 10 films, no?
Yeah, yeah, I forgot how many I made, but yeah, it's a good amount. It's majority of them are short films.
Right.
There were usually I write, produce, direct, film, and edit my films. I do everything but starring in it and do makeup. I don't do those things. Um,
It's
there
okay.
were a handful
No
of films.
judgments if you don't make
Yeah.
if you don't do the makeup. It's okay.
Yeah, I like to be behind the camera, not in front of it. Um, but yeah, and then there were a couple films that I was brought on to either just film or just direct or do a combination of both. Um, but yeah, I mean, I also try to do something different every single time, even though like my favorite genre is probably like sci-fi drama. That's probably like I think what I resonate more towards. But I've gotten my hands, wet with I did a horror short film. I've done like a romantic comedy and just because like I was just like, oh, I just want to try this and see how it works. I would say, although I'm not like a big horror person in the sense of like it's not the first thing I go to, it's probably the most fun to film because you
Ah,
get to do like the VFX and like the blood and like well depending on the context of the movie, but like just all
mhm.
that practical effects and like just doing like that to me was like the more appealing part about it and to see how far you can kind of push it. But I would say like sci-fi is probably like where my heart kind of lies in genres, but I
Oh,
like everything.
you're a sci-fi guy?
But I mean, well, I like a lot of movies. I watch movies every day.
Hmm.
But if I was to like most of my ideas are like dramatic sci-fi for the most part.
Ah,
Yeah.
so give me an example of dramatic Wi-Fi. I mean, Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
sci-fi.
Well, dramatic Wi-Fi is what you just went through with your internet.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I went through, folks. Thank you too.
Yeah.
An undisclosed cable company, which shall not be named.
Well, Anna Adore was a good example where it's just about this couple that breaks up and mostly at the fault of the protagonist, which actually stars Mark Rain, who has been on your show before. He's an awesome
Shout
guy.
out to Mark Rain.
Mark is great. And then he kind of gets like a replacement companion in the form of an android. And
Mm.
he kind of just like still does what he did in the past relationship, but it has even worse consequences.
Oof.
Um, so that was a an interesting one because we were kind of like hiding some of the sci-fi aspect, but it had like a sci-fi element to it. And then actually reprising kind of like his role, Mark jumped on board for like this really last minute film festival competition that came about. I want to say probably like late 2020 or going into 2021. The film composer Hans Zimmer, who's done like I mean, he did like Lion King and Pirates of the Caribbean and Interstellar and
What about Superman?
Inception. Yeah, he did Man of Steel. He did I mean,
Mm.
he's like one of the biggest Hollywood film composers, but he did a YouTube film competition where
Mm.
he allowed I think like five of his songs that were like live versions and he was just saying, "Hey, like pick anyone that you want, do a video short film with it and then submit it and then we'll pick a winner." And you had to do it within I think it was like less than 2 weeks or something. And this is kind of like still in the height of COVID. So it wasn't easy to plan something very short. But thankfully that song is all instrumental. It's a really emotional song. I chose the song Time from Inception. And
Ooh.
I spent like a good like day just like mapping out the song into like the beats that it had on there. So and then I was visualizing like, okay, what happens next? What happens next? So it just followed like the emotional tone. And then
So
once I
like
kind of
almost
had it
like a
all
video
mapped,
storyboard within the music.
yeah. So I had everything laid out. Once I had it in my head, I'm like, okay, I need two actors, a female and a male. Um, I literally turned my basement into like this like makeshift laboratory place, and then I hit up Mark, and then actually the actress that was also in Anna Door, and they were playing similar roles, but in this one, this was more of like a Frankenstein love story type of thing where he lost his real life companion, but then in this music video short film, he rebuilds her, and then at the end he's like reunited with her because he kind of like recreates her in this new form.
Oh wow.
um so it was good and it actually had a pretty good film festival run. It won a few awards and I mean granted it's mostly part because the song is just so freaking emotional and it's so intense, but I would like to think that the visuals helped convey some of that story. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm a sucker for like sci-fi stuff and just anything dramatic. um but I'm open to all genres, all films. I watch everything and anything. Just, I'm a huge supporter of all the films out there, independent or mainstream. Um, but yeah, shout out to Marcos again because he always says yes when I ask him to do something.
Well, that's a good thing. It's
Yeah,
hard to find people to work with you consistently.
yeah,
And then in terms they can understand the vision of what you're
yeah,
trying to convey.
yeah, and they
That's
can also
another thing.
deliver.
No, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
And they know that it's like working with a promissory note. It's like, well, listen, if this makes it or whatever happens, could you help me out and stuff like that. And it's very rare, especially considering now that we're in 2025, that people want to work with you in that capacity.
yeah,
And with that dedication and that care and that love for what you do and what you create
yeah,
together.
yeah, and also you just gotta for any filmmakers out there, just take care of your cast and crew. You'd be surprised how far just
Mhm.
paying for lunch and just doing a little gestures of appreciation, it does go a long way. Um, without them, you can't make anything. So you got to support your team.
No, yeah, yeah, yeah. What's this thing called? So interesting. Um, within because have you ever tried for maybe any of the short films going for the Oscar category potentially?
Well, I've worked on one SAG project, but I don't think I wasn't the writer. I was kind of like the co-director on that one.
Mhm.
Um, but majority of my films have all been non-union.
Ah,
Yeah, so but going into this next project that I'm working on, which will be a feature film, I'm gonna try to stick with SAG projects going forward if I can, so that it could be considered for all the major film festivals and award categories. Um, so but that's not to say that all the film festivals I have been a part of so far have been I've been part of some pretty amazing festivals, especially within the tri-state.
mm,
And it's amazing to see just all the different like films that are out there, and like it varies. So, there's like animation, there's like foreign films, there's documentaries, like there's just like such a plethora of like just content out there that like sometimes never gets seen, and that's why I'm really grateful for like the independent film festivals that are out there, because at least that's where I get a lot of like my networking opportunities and meeting new actors and other filmmakers. um that's probably like the other half of the reason why I like to make films, is to be when I once I finally get to that point of like, oh cool, I can do a film festival run, I can meet with other people, and you get a lot out of it, especially if you stay consistent. And but of course, the dream is, it's like playing the lotto. If you don't play, you never win. So the goal is to start, not only continue those film festivals that I've been a part of, but try to get to like the Sundance and the South by Southwest. And you know it
mm,
just keep aiming higher, just try to give yourself those goals. Whether you hit them or not, you're setting yourself to try to be better than the last. Especially like, I had to pretty much teach myself everything, which is by choice. It's not like circumstance happened. I'm a very hands-on
mm.
individual. I grew up on YouTube, and like going to the library and getting books, and just dissecting movie scripts. So um but yeah, that was a long answer to your question. Yes, I do plan on
No,
submitting it
no.
to like these
Listen,
larger film
it's
festivals if
okay.
possible.
Listen, I've got time. We're good. Hold on one second, okay?
Yeah.
So, uh, we left off at although you gave me a long answer.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's all good. So, um, what was I going to say? So you've done a lot of genres. You've gravitated more towards sci-fi, which is science fiction, folks. Keep up. Let's go. And you've done horror because like nowadays with horror, I like to not to criticize, not to bash horror, but nowadays horror has become like either the easy thing to do, but then it's become so gory and over the top.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the funny thing about horror movies. Like, even a bad horror movie you can enjoy. because you're
Yes.
kind of like suspending like your belief.
Yeah.
Some lean into that like cult classic, like over the top, and then some try to make a serious movie, which usually means they're spending more money on it, and then it doesn't do as well. Usually horror has a simple formula. Like for at least for me, it's like try to keep the everything practical. Like do
Hmm.
not rely on CGI if you don't have to.
Hmm.
Because there's nothing scary about horror CGI, at least not in my opinion. Like I want to see people actually fake bleeding with fake gory blood, or like get a fake arm if it rips off somebody's body, or like I don't
Hmm.
know. It's more of a spectacle, you know. And then just try to bend the rules and try to, even if you're using a formula that other people have done, try to make it like your own formula if possible. I mean, this could be applied to any genre, but specifically to horror, there's always like a creature or a monster or a bad guy going after somebody innocent. Put them in a weird scenario and make it different, you know. But yeah, I mean, horror, it's fun. I don't get scared of horror movies.
Right.
Um, I would say what does scare me are probably movies more that could happen in real life, like kidnapping or something. Like that to me freaks me out
Yeah.
because that's like, oh great, now I'm leaving the movie theater at night. Why is that van parked right next to my car? You know, but if I'm going to see like The Exorcist, you know, but if I'm going to see like The Exorcist or something like that, like, you know, besides like the jump scares, yeah, I don't get scared for those things.
Well, I went to film school, so one of the first genres that they taught us to dissect, it's a technique, as I'm sure you've read and know about, called counting shots.
Hmm.
You count the shots until the action comes along. So I once I learned that, it took me such a long time to watch a horror movie in peace.
Yeah.
Whoever watched the horror movie with me was like, "Why you there? Like, shut up."
Yeah, it's different when you're watching a movie with like a filmmaker's lens. You almost have to watch the movie like three times to like
Hmm.
appreciate it. You
Yeah.
know, I try to like not go in technically on the first try, but it's hard not to because I'm like,
Yes.
oh, I like the lighting. Oh, that shot composition was good. Yeah, I would have changed that music choice. Like I'm like
Yes.
dissecting it just from a
Yes.
technical standpoint. And then usually when I watch it the second or third time, I'm just like watching the movie. And then I usually wind up liking it more or less
Right.
or something. But
Hmm.
it's hard to take off that filmmaker hat when you're going to the movies.
No, yeah, for sure. And I tried to teach that to my son. I said, "Don't be scared." He's like, "What do you mean? Doesn't that movie scare you?" No. Look, count the shots. He's like, "What?" Big long shot of the where they are, hand shots, face shots, hear the music,
Hmm.
weird music, right? Keep going. More closer shots like this of shoulders to the head, medium to the head, and the music's getting scarier, right? And boom, there's the killer.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was like, count from 5 to 1. He's like, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, there it is. Oh my gosh.
Like I said,
So,
formulas are good for, you know, if you just want to
mhm,
try to get your point across. And there's a reason why certain like not templates, but like
mhm,
story outlines are used or story structures. You know, they do serve a purpose. You just got to try to be unique. If you could be unique, you can use all types of like story templates. I try to like experiment whenever I can so that I see what I gravitate towards. And
Right.
even with like this feature film that I'm writing now, I'm doing a 4 act structure, which I've only done 3 act structures for all my shorts and the features.
Correct.
So, and I'm learning that. I was like, oh, I actually like this 4 act structure. It's technically you could all throw it down to like 3 acts, but it's just the way it's separated. It makes it a little bit easier for me to be like, oh, I don't have to cram it all in this one section. I can save it for the second half or move things around.
Right, right, right.
But
So the 4 act
it's
structure is just, beginning, middle, anticlimax, climactic, and then near the end.
yeah, it's basically splitting act 2 into just 2 more acts.
Yeah.
Um, but
So
you have
just
like
like
a
stretching it
nice,
out more. Yeah.
yeah. So but that's the thing, like that's just one of the many things I've come across with just the journey of teaching yourself filmmaking and just
Mhm.
watching YouTube videos and printing movie scripts and then reading them as you're watching the movie to see how the pacing is. And I don't know, there's not like a science behind it, but you'll find patterns, and there's nothing wrong with patterns if you just kind
No,
of put your spin on it.
absolutely not. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Um, I have an interesting question for you. In terms of the whole, I honestly I think it's hard now for filmmaking in general because of the whole rise of streaming. There's movies now that are getting so limited runs in the theaters. Like if you don't like make at least half the budget back of what was invested, they're gonna be like, oh no, okay, we'll see you in streaming in a month. What? Or sometimes even 2 weeks.
Yeah. I
And then they
mean,
find new life in streaming services.
well, I mean, I just look back at like when Netflix first came around. No actor ever wanted to be on a Netflix movie or show because that was like, no, 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 no. I only want to be on the big screen. And then, of course, a decade later, now Netflix is the number one streaming service, and now people are lining up the door to be in a Netflix, production. And even as
Mhm.
an independent filmmaker, to get your movie on Netflix there's a whole song and dance and things you got to pay for. Um,
Even on Amazon too.
yeah, I would say this. It's when I like started getting interested. I mean, I've always been interested in film, but like I would say I probably really started doing like film out like okay, put it like this. In 2015 is when I actually started doing like my own film projects. Before that, I would say like at least 5 years before that, I kind of was just experimenting. So I would do music videos for people, weddings, concert events, family event, like anything that required me to turn on my camera. I would go out there and just film, and I would make money here and there, and which I would try to reinvest into like, oh, maybe I can get this lens and maybe I can get this tripod or whatever. But I would definitely say starting in 2015 is when I really started to really just say, hey, I'm gonna write my movie, film it, get actors, get everything, and then kind of like started from there. But back then the challenges were different. It was more about um getting resources to make a movie. You couldn't really film things on a phone because phones weren't really that capable as far as like
Right.
trying to get a certain quality. So that means like trying to get your hands on some half decent camera. And then you have to get a good enough computer to like edit your movie, assuming that you're doing all this yourself. But
Correct.
you know,
Mhm.
now that's not really a challenge anymore because you have
Mhm.
smartphones that are like 4K. They shoot beautiful content. You can
Mhm.
totally film, and you can film and edit and upload your movie just on your phone. Like you can literally just do everything. Like if I had this iPhone
Mhm.
over 10 years ago, I would be a different filmmaker. But now what's today's challenge is exposure. There's too much content out there. So now you're competing with influencers and all these short form videos and people's attention spans and all these different social media platforms that you could potentially use. So I think what's going to separate the people who are successful or what they consider to be successful is just consistency. If you're just like consistent, it'll come in a form that will hopefully become more long term for you. You know, it's, and you just, and what's going to carry through that is the passion. So if you have enough passion, you'll stay consistent and you'll find the time to like make it work. Um, but yeah, I mean, today's time is different. Like there's a lot of opportunity, but there's also a lot of, I don't want to say competition. You should only be
Yes.
competing with yourself, but
A little
yeah,
unhealthy ever so
yeah,
often, but yes.
yeah, so I think the best thing to do is just put horse blinders on, focus on your craft, just make sure you get to the end point, try to, expose it as much as possible, learn from it so that when you make your next project, you can make it easier, faster, better quality, use resources. Um, I mean, at least that's just the way I did it. I try to outdo myself anytime, and anything I've done on my last project, I'm like, oh, what could I have done better? Well, I wish I would have done this. Well, go out there and learn it, or find someone who could do it better than you if you can hire them. And
Hmm.
collaborate. You're not going to grow if you don't collaborate. Whether it's a small project or a bigger project. So
Well, Adam, thank you for your time and thank you for this conversation. And you
yeah,
kind of reinvigorated me. So
yeah,
this is a good thing.
I'm glad.
So, because I was feeling kind of, so I'm back. So thank you for this conversation and thank you for your
Sounds
time.
good. Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right.